All right, thanks so much. This is July 18th, 2014. This is Bob O'Boyle. I'm interviewing Dean Chris Comer for the Gathering Project. And so with that, we'll just get started with a stumper. If you could tell me your full name and when and where you were born.
Sure. So my full name is Christopher Mark Comer. I was born in Newark, New Jersey, 1952.
Excellent. Now, part of the gathering is it's collected oral histories.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about everybody has a history and a background. A lot of times, if you are in Butte or something, somebody will say, "Now, what's your name? Who are you related to? So and so." Oh, okay, all right. Now we can make that connection. So one of the things we always ask is, you have that history. So if you could tell us a little bit about your own history, your background, who are your people and where they came from?
That's the first question when I met Trelick O'Riordan that he asked me, and he realized I was Irish. So where are your people from? So my father was born in Newark, and there was a section of Newark at the time that was sort of an Irish ghetto. It was Down Neck, as they used to call it, and that's where he was born. His father and mother both came from Ireland, emigrated, and then born there and settled in New Jersey. My mom's family were from New York City. Both her parents were born in Ireland and had emigrated to New York. She was born in Manhattan, I think, and once again, my grandparents there lived in the Upper East Side when it was an Irish neighborhood, and then migrated up to the Bronx. So Irish on both sides. All four of my grandparents were born in Ireland, 4 different counties. So the question of where are your people from, it's Sligo on the north, Cork on the south, and Galway and Clare in the middle.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, what were your folks' names?
So my dad was Tom Comer, and my mom was a Walsh, and her father was born in Sligo, so a Walsh from Sligo. And then my Comer relatives still live in Galway, in a little town called Glenamaddy, which I've visited. It's a lovely place. And on the other side, my grandmother was from, let me think a minute, Doneraile, in the north of Cork. And her maiden name was Synan, S-Y-N-A-N. Edmund Synan was her father.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, are there any stories when you think of being Irish? Are there any particular anecdotes or anything that remind you of that?
Numerous ones, obviously. So the family being pretty Irish, and I grew up in a part of New Jersey that was pretty ethnic. Everybody was Italian or Irish or Polish, and everybody knew their roots. So we kind of joked about that a lot. We were. It was hard to forget you were Irish. I mean, we were pretty tightly connected to the parish we grew up in, and there were a lot of Irish in the parish, and so. I think for me growing up, I could not separate being Catholic from being Irish. They were kind of one and the same thing, and I didn't really distinguish much between them. As I've gotten older, that's changed. I mean, I appreciate being Irish on lots of different levels, not just that level. And as I've gotten older, I've also met some Irish people that are not Catholic and kind of appreciated the broader dimensions of being Irish besides just that. But that's an early one. Parish activities, St. Patrick's Day. There was, a lot of Irish identification in the household. I remember especially connecting with my grandparents. I mean, I didn't know my dad's folks from Galway. They had died before I was born. But my grandfather from Sligo was a buddy of mine. He was great. He was a draftsman, and he taught me a little bit about drawing, and I looked up to him tremendously. And he spoke with a bit of an accent, and I loved that. And I just loved, hanging out with him and hearing his stories.
Did they speak Irish?
They knew some words. I don't think that they certainly didn't speak it in the home. So I would guess they learned a bit in school and knew a bit, as most do, but it wasn't common. And my father claimed to know a handful of phrases which he repeated to us, and we all knew it because my grandmother taught us to bless ourselves in Irish. And when I remember one time when I told my grandmother what my father, so my father and my grandmother on the other side, what he had said, he said that, you know, gave us 4 or 5 phrases, and a couple of them were wrong. He had gotten his words mixed up, and they weren't quite as polite as he thought they were. And my grandmother said, "Where did you get those?" "Well, my dad." So we realized my dad was not a reliable reporter about Irish language matters.
But it was important enough to him to make sure and try and say that and pass it on to you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it was, yeah, for sure, for sure. And my grandmother, I mean, my grandmother lived a lot longer. We all knew her a lot better. She told us lots of stories about growing up in the south of Ireland. And she claimed to have heard the banshee as a girl. And, you know, when you were a little kid, to hear this story about, you know, riding along the coast on a lonely evening and the horse getting spooked and the sounds of the banshee, we just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So, you know, a lot of things like that that you can't not remember. So as a kid, you know, the interest in it was there, and then I had a strong desire to go to Ireland, which I've been able to do many times since I've been an adult, and I love it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, tell me a little bit about that, about being Irish. I mean, obviously it's important to you, but what does that mean to you?
I think it's come to me in, you know, I'm an academic, and so in a way I kind of identify with the literary, artistic, storytelling side of the Irish. I mean, I really appreciate that. I'm fascinated by it. I like it when I see it in my own family. I'm interested when it shows up in others. And so that's the part I probably most strongly identify with. And of course, having started to study the history of the Irish, I respect their struggle for independence. I'm very interested in that. I'm kind of excited that the anniversary of the Easter Rising is coming pretty soon. So it has a lot of dimensions. They're a complex people, and they've had a pretty complex history. And then because my own family came from Ireland, settled in the East, and now has moved over the country, I think the Irish-American experience in America is pretty fascinating as well. And of course, that's a great connection point to the Irish here in Montana. They've got fascinating stories, and I've heard some, and look forward to hearing more. They're pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. You're the Dean of the College of Arts and Science, who oversees the Irish Studies Department. What do you think about that as far as having it's been called the best Irish Studies Department west of the Mississippi under your care?
Well, they're bloody well right on that one. So to put that in context, when I was considering, I was in Chicago for many years, another fine city with a great Irish population, actually several. The North Side and the South Side Irish have a slightly different spin on the world. But, you know, a lot of factors cause you to come someplace, and there were a lot of positive things that caused me to want to come to Montana about the university. But one of the things was actually the Irish Studies program. When I looked at it, I realized they had one, which I hadn't known before. And I specifically asked to meet the director of the program when I interviewed. And I was quite happy to find out that that was the case. I thought it was pretty exciting that a public university had a new and hopefully thriving Irish Studies program, and I thought it'd be fun to come and try to contribute to that. So got me here in a way. I think the program, it's not a full academic department in the usual sense. It's a program that lives at the moment in the English department. And I suppose we all hope someday it will be strong enough to become its own department. But those things take time. But it has the possibility of doing it, I think in part because the state of Montana is such a unique place for a program like that. So for example, I have some good friends in Ireland that I've gotten to know when I teach over there every summer. And well before I knew much about the Montana Irish, I had heard stories from one of my collaborators who I teach with, and she said, "Oh, I go to Montana every summer." And I didn't know Montana at the time. I said, "Well, why do you do that?" And she said, "Oh, there's a great Irish history in Montana." And she told me all about it. So I kind of had been clued into the fact that there was a well-defined Irish population here, and they'd been significant to the history of the state, and that many Irish people even knew that and identified with that linkage. And that intrigued me. And that's just been strengthened, I guess, that intrigue, because the stories out of Anaconda, out of well, you name a major city, there's some Irish there, and their roots go back into the foundings of Montana in important ways. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah. So what now you've got to experience Montana Irish for a while. What are your impressions of the folks here as far as that goes?
They're great. You know, they've been welcoming. They have a passion for preserving their culture. That's not every area of the country that you'll run into Irish will have that quite as strong. And I think, you know, you could go to New York and Boston and Chicago and you'll find large Irish populations. The absolute size of the population here is quite a bit smaller, but yet the passion is no less than New York or Boston, and good for us for that. That's an exciting feature of it.
Yeah, excellent. Well, one of the things that we do, and you led us right to that, is not only preserve that history of the past, but we leave stuff for the next generation. I know I've seen you at the St. Patrick's Day activities, and you got your little man there and stuff. What do you hope to leave as far as heritage, your Irish heritage, for that next generation, not only for your own family, but in general?
Yeah. Well, I mean, personally, I have 5 children, and I've wanted them all, I've had all 5 of them in Ireland with me at one time or another, and I've wanted them all to get to know their roots and just kind of celebrate that and be comfortable with it. And I think that's been successful. You know, on a broader level, I think my opportunities in my job here, that I've tried to be helpful to the Irish Studies program, and the community itself is helpful to the program. There's no doubt. You know about the Friends of Irish Studies. They've been a great support to the program. The AOH has been great to support the program. But the university has to play a role in that, and so it's my job to help do that. We've tried to help stabilize their budget a little bit. We hope to grow that in the future, and we've been working to generate philanthropic money to come into the program and hopefully allow it to do more and more each year. And there's no doubt that the faculty affiliated with the program have great ambitions, and so really the job of an administrator is to sort of get them resources and then stay out of the way and let them do it. Although some of the teaching I do allows students to get credit in Irish Studies, and that's fun too. So on every level I can contribute, I would like to, because I hope 20 years from now we look back and we see a really thriving Irish Studies program that's nationally prominent, and that everybody currently involved will be able to take some pride in, both the community members and the university.
Excellent. Excellent. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about with this project?
Well, you know, let me speak to the scholarly importance of it, because that's the thing that I would think about most being in this job. I know for folks in the community, it's great to know that records are being made of the experiences of Irish folks coming to Montana. That's wonderful, just in terms of helping us enjoy the past. But there's serious scholarship that's both possible and currently being done about that. The history of the Irish is a history of a people that can be generalized in ways, and you can learn about how people grappled with discrimination when they arrived. The Irish faced that, how they grappled with difficult economic circumstances, how their social structures helped them to kind of get their feet down on the ground and contribute to America. Those are important stories to be told for the lessons of history they provide, regardless of whether you're Irish or Russian or Chinese, for that matter. So there's a lot of scholarly work to be done, and the Irish population is a great source of inspiration for lots of scholarly work. That's just the history. There's cultural dynamics that are interesting to study. There's the literature of the Irish, both in Ireland and in the U.S., that's rich and worth studying. So, and then, my God, the preservation of the Irish language is no small thing. In so much of academia, we recognize the fact. I mean, think of the tribes in Montana. It's really important we preserve native languages. It's so important to them. It's part of their identity. And it's no less important to the Irish, even though many Irish don't speak Irish. It's still formally part of the culture, and it still has crept into it. And there's, there's elements of just the way the Irish handle their English that's been conditioned by the Irish language. All of that's important to know. So I think that cultural identity piece through studying the Irish language is really important as well. So, that's kind of right down the middle of the pipeline for us.
Yeah. Well, I thank you, and I think that you're doing a great job. I think we have a heck of a program here with the Irish Studies. It's doing a lot of things, and that's in no small part thanks to your support.
It's good people in the community, good faculty, and the aspiration here is we'd like to make sure we get as many students who have Irish roots to come here and kind of appreciate their heritage if they can, get a minor in Irish Studies, someday a major, we hope. And for that matter, studying Irish history and culture is valuable to kids who aren't Irish as well. The parallels with some at least of the experience of Native Americans, African Americans is actually kind of profound, and there's a lot of cross-cultural lessons to be learned. So, the college actually hopes to have ever stronger programs, not only in Native American studies, but also Irish American studies, and then Asian American issues. There's so many cultural things that can be enriched by having them all happen in the same college. That's kind of the point of that.
Yeah, I know with the hurling team and all the success they've seen, the national champion hurling team from university. We did an interview with them for the gathering, and this was before they headed to New York for the big game.
Sure.
But it was amazing how many of those kids aren't Irish, but said, I feel Irish. I feel like, a part of this movement, this team, and several of them even traveled over to Ireland as part of the program.
Yeah, that's a feature of Irish culture that is worth having explored in its own right. The Irish can do a great job of welcoming others into their community, and people can feel adopted by the Irish in a way that's quite endearing. And I'm not quite sure what the roots of that are. Maybe it's because it's a people that over their own history have been impacted by other groups coming in there so often that they're not as phobic of the outside cultures as you might think, and they're pretty open, and that's kind of like I said, it's a very endearing feature.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy lad, so we won't keep you any longer, but I thank you very much.
Bob, thank you. It's good to talk to you.